Guys, I lost a little bit of money investing in Xpeng. I had to cut my losses, and I recommend everyone else do the same who had invested in Xpeng. That doesn't mean this isn't a good company. In fact, they make brilliant cars. And I'm stoked that they won't just be exclusive to Europe and China anymore. Now, Xpeng, for one, they've just recently revealed they will be selling their new G6 electric vehicle, which is a direct rival to the Tesla Model Y. The dimensions are uncannily similar to the Model Y, almost identical to the millimeter. They're selling that in Europe, right, for almost identical prices to the Tesla Model Y, in some cases to the exact dollar figure of the Model Y in some European countries. However, Xpeng don't currently sell vehicles in Australia. That's about to change. And I'm going to give you a prediction on how much the G6 will cost, so you can kind of weigh out whether or not you should consider buying a G6 or a Tesla Model Y or something else entirely. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. And yeah, I've got a smile on my face because, like I said, I'm a fan of Xpeng. I'm a fan of their CEO. The guy doesn't blither blather nonsense like the CEO of NIO. He's legit. He's a good guy, and I think he's a good leader. And I feel a little bit sorry for Xpeng. I don't really understand why they haven't had the sales success in China that everyone predicted they would, why they went through such an incredible hard time last year. We're verging on the kind of the edge of potentially going bankrupt there. They were pushing around, trying to scrape around to get money. They had to fire a lot of staff as well, put projects on hold. Now, the Volkswagen Group kind of saved their bacon with their huge investments. So, that was good, but that wouldn't have happened without Xpeng actually having good technology. So that wasn't entirely luck. It wasn't like Volkswagen ran in to save them. Volkswagen Group gets something out of that deal as well. They get Xpeng's platform, they get Xpeng's EV technology, they get their software. And Xpeng software is miles better than the Volkswagen Group. How is that possible? I mean, the Volkswagen Group, $200 billion in debt. The company's still worth hundreds of billions, right? How is it really, not hundreds of billions, but you get my point, right? It's worth 100 billion. How is it that Xpeng, this little company, has just a much better product than the Volkswagen Group? Now, the Volkswagen Group, to their credit, recognized that fact and thought, well, let's just get them to make the EVs for us and people will stop criticizing us. Great idea, if you ask me. I mean, it's maybe not quite that simple, guys, but and actually it is pretty much that simple. Electric vehicle company Xpeng will join the growing ranks of Chinese brands in Australia. We have so many now. I'm like, wow, losing track of them all. Chery, they're coming with their EVs. Zeekr, that's the one I'm most excited for personally. Zeekr's EVs, just super luxury, alternative as well to the Volvo EX30. Geely are coming. They're bringing apparently the radar electric pickup truck. We've got BYD, MG, we've got Aura, we've got other companies as well that are on the horizon. There's one that I can't talk about, but anyhow, the Xpeng G6. This is the best car that Xpeng manufacture. It's the newest car they manufacture. It's the car that they were basically betting the company on. Its sales haven't actually gone that well. They did initially for a couple of months and then they kind of died off. However, the brand will arrive in the fourth quarter of this year with its Tesla Model Y rivaling G6. Very likely it'll be the same price as the Model Y, spec for spec. Now, speaking of specs for spec, I'll kind of give you a brief overview of how you can compare the two cars. First of all, it rides on the brand's Smart Electric Platform Architecture 2.0. So it's its new electric architecture. It's considered to be very good. It's an 800 volt architecture. So yeah, the car will have a pretty good charging speed, and you're going to find that overall the efficiency for this vehicle will be pretty good as well. Size, same as the Model Y, 4,753 millimeters long, 1,920 millimeters wide, and 1,650 millimeters tall, 2,890 millimeters wheelbase. I mean, in terms of interior space, it's probably a couple of percent smaller than the Model Y in terms of packaging. It is actually a couple of percent smaller, but like I said, very, very similar. You've got a choice of batteries. The cheapest model, which will compete with the standard range Model Y, has a 66 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery with 435 kilometers of WLTP range. So to compare the current Tesla Model Y, it has 20 kilometers less WLTP range, but it charges a bit faster. The Model Y charges about 175, in the real world, about 180 kilowatt charging speeds. The G6 standard range vehicle has 215 kilowatt charging speeds. Therefore, that would make it, a slight benefit in terms of charging speed. Potentially, it also is on that 800 volt architecture, so you might be able to maintain a high charging peak for a long period of time. Anyway, that said, Tesla does have the supercharged network, and whether or not the G6 will be able to be charged on the Tesla supercharged network immediately, there might be some issues, as there has been with getting some BYDs to charge on the network. Some of them do, some of them don't. Now, there is a different option as well, and this is probably going to interest more people. There's an 87.5 kilowatt hour battery option. That's a nickel cobalt manganese battery, not LFP like the smaller battery pack, and that has a 550 kilometer WLTP range and 280 kilowatt DC charging. So that vehicle has similar range, similar charging speeds to the Tesla Model Y long range. So those two models of Tesla Model Ys, standard range and long range, compare very similarly to these two versions of the Xpeng G6 that are coming. The G6 comes with a choice of single motor rear-wheel drive, same as the Model Y, or dual motor all-wheel drive. It's not a coincidence that it's very similarly styled in terms of sizing and motors, rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive, range, battery pack chemistry. Look at the chemistry. Same chemistry as the Model Y, LFP for the cheaper version, NMC for the more expensive version. It's very, very similar, but it makes sense. There's a lot of Chinese manufacturers doing this. They're basically trying to target the Model Y in China. The rear-wheel drive standard range has 190 kilowatt of power and 440 newton meters of torque. You're going to find performance will be similar to the G6. Tesla does not have a long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y currently for sale in Australia. It only has the all-wheel drive version. It has now the long-range rear-wheel drive version in America. It has it in Europe, but we don't have that in Australia yet. So this is one area that a little bit of an advantage for the G6 here. Rear-wheel drive long range produces 210 kilowatt and 440 newton meters of torque, so the same power as the Tesla Model Y standard range, but the all-wheel drive performance puts out 350 kilowatt and 660 newton meters. So very similar performance power figures to the Model Y long range. Now, the performance version of the G6, it does 0 to 62 miles an hour, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.1 seconds. Like I said, similar to the Model Y long range. The G6, though, does have one advantage that the Model Y doesn't currently have, but it may have with the new version. So hold out for a second. It has vehicle to load capacity. That gives you the ability to power external devices. In Europe, standard equipment includes a heat pump that improves efficiency in cold weather, in particular a panoramic glass roof, similar to the Model Y, almost identical, 20-inch alloy wheels, heated and ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, dual 50-watt wireless phone chargers, an 18-speaker 960-watt sound system, and a heated steering wheel. There is a slim 10.2-inch, very sort of slim, digital instrument cluster sitting in front of the driver, as there is with many EVs, and there's also a 15-inch landscape-oriented touch screen infotainment system that supports over-the-air updates. It's quite a nice interior, actually. I think it'll be a nice place to be. Now, in terms of its autonomous ability to drive, right, it does have a similar system to Tesla's autopilot, very, very similar. So it'll probably come to Australia with that as well, I imagine. Now, if you don't know much about the company, they were founded back in 2014 in Guangzhou in China, and they started production of their first vehicle, the G3 SUV, 4 years later in 2018. In addition to the G6, there is a G9 SUV. Is that coming to Australia? Not yet. Could it in the future? Very possibly. There is a P5 and a P7 sedan. Probably not likely those would come. And an X9, which is their people mover. That's probably their best car, in my opinion. It's a new EV, the X9. It's very, very nice. I really like it. People movers, though, that's probably more of a niche market in Australia. So I can't see that one coming to Australia. I think it's likely they'll bring their other electric SUV, which is bigger than this vehicle. Now, Xpeng originally announced they'd be selling cars in Europe in 2020. Whilst they do sell cars in Europe now, they only sell a very small number. It's like, maybe about 100 a month. It's a very, very small niche market. But Xpeng are trying to expand in Europe. They're bringing, like I said, the G6 to Europe. It's already for sale there now at the same price to the Model Y, almost identical pricing strategy. In addition to Australia, though, it sells the G6 and other cars in Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. The company is partnering with Volkswagen to develop EVs. In other words, actually, that's all just marketing talk from Volkswagen. Basically, Xpeng are going to build some EVs, models for the Volkswagen group. And of course, Volkswagen, kind of like a contract manufacturer. Now, that's not what they'll tell you, but this is all China, right? This is what's happening in China. And the truth is that legacy automakers in China, they don't really do their own thing. It's the Chinese brands, the Chinese joint venture partners that actually do the manufacturing, really. Xpeng will join a bunch of Chinese car brands here in Australia. You've got LDV, Lotus, MG, Volvo, BYD, Great Wall Motors, Chery, Zeekr. There's other new brands coming. You've got JQ, Deepal, Geely, Radar. Yeah, I mean, the list is going to just keep on growing. Chinese automakers are going to take over a massive segment of the Australian automotive industry. I think probably about 80% of all the Australian cars will be Chinese by 2035. We're talking, 11 years from now. It's going to be very, very fast disruption. I mean, think about it this way, guys. How many mobile phones do you buy made in Japan or America? How many computers do you buy made in Japan or America? What about TVs? Any of those? What about solar panels? Yeah, you get my point. That's where it's going. So what do you think, guys, of the G6? Personally, I'm a big fan, but you've got to keep in mind, by the time the G6 comes to Australia, the Model Y Juniper will be hitting the market. And the Juniper will be much better than today's existing Model Y. Massive, massive improvements are coming to the Model Y. And therefore, all the comparisons I've revealed to you in this video, they're not really that relevant, because by the time this car comes, the Model Y Juniper will be on the market as well. And it's going to have all the same improvements of the existing Model 3 Highland, but I believe it's going to have the new Shenzhen CATL battery pack. And it's going to have some other improvements as well that Tesla, I know, have been working on. It's going to be a tough market here for the Xpeng G6. That said, it's a really nice car, and I do hope there are people who want to buy one because it deserves to have some buyers. Thanks for watching.